Hi guys, Blacksmith Bets here. I'm going to talk today about something kind of interesting. So there's a lot of clickbait channels out there that will post things like turn £1 into 1,000, really crazy returns. It kind of is just like a trope on the internet now. I'm not going to do that, but the title of this video, or what you've seen in the thumbnail, is turn £10 or $10 into 200. This is more of a realistic sort of number. So that gives you around like 20 to 1 odds, yeah? The reason I'm doing this is because I've hit another high odds prop this weekend. I hit Angela Hill to win in round 2 in the UFC. The week before that, I hit a parlay at 16.75 to 1, so close to 20 to 1 as well. And I've hit quite a lot of bets, to be honest, over this year. If we're looking back, I also had Neil Magny, which is up much higher odds. The highest one I hit was 72 to 1 on him because I got the round and method combination. So there's quite a few big bets like this, but around about 20 to 1 odds is the sort of bet I'm going to talk about today. The reason I'm talking about this actually is because I am speaking to someone soon who may be making a group underneath my brand, and they're going to specialise specifically in a niche which is just going after these high odds props. They are good, not necessarily for UFC by the way, I'm talking about for other sports. I'm not talking necessarily about parlays, although it does count to a certain extent with this, but I'm going to focus on single bets. So there is a way where you can hit these fairly reliably, but I want to talk to you about what is realistic, because a lot of people sports bet and gamble just to try and get these big wins because they don't want to commit a lot of money, and that is the advantage. It's very low risk, high reward. You're not going to mind losing £10, are you, every weekend? You're probably not even going to notice it's gone, but you will notice when you win 200. And that's why a lot of people are attracted to this, but you've got to know what you're betting on. The main things to work out, because there's a few things you need to consider before you do this. Most people do not do this because these bets often are made by people that are just taking a stab at the dark at something. They're not really putting much thought into how they're going to do it or if it's worth taking. But if you use this method I'm going to show you now, you will know not only if it's worth taking, but roughly how often you're going to have to bet for it to hit. So the biggest thing about these high odds props is the implied probability. In gambling, it is the main thing you should be thinking of. When you cap any event, when you analyse any event, you should be trying to figure out a percentage in your mind which you think, through your analysis, is the actual percentage of an event happening. So, Angela Hill to win in round 2. It's kind of hard to say because it's a specific round, specific scenario, her win by stoppage. But when I did my analysis, this is why I bet on that specifically. I actually bet a lot more money on round 3, but I put round 2 as well because of what I saw in the tape study. So a lot of people were saying that this is a stupid bet. If you go and look at my Instagram, there was someone actually saying Angela Hill was a terrible bet, she's got a rubbish record. I got into a debate with them, which they have not responded to because I guess they're embarrassed, about how the record alone doesn't tell you if a fight is good, it's who they're fighting. But someone else, another podcast that I actually really respect and trust, said if you're going to bet Angela Hill by stoppage, you've not done your tape study. And it really annoyed me. I didn't comment anything negative because I'm trying to be positive and look, everyone gets things wrong. I've said loads of things that are wrong, so judging that would be harsh. But it annoyed me because when I did my tape study, that's the reason why I made the prediction. What they were alluding to, and what I believe they did, is they looked at her record, they saw she doesn't win by stoppage, and they just said, put 2 and 2 together and said she can't win by stoppage. So this is one reason why the odds are high. Any fighter in MMA can win by stoppage. So we have a situation here where it plays to our advantage. That's why the odds were so high, because Angela Hill doesn't win by stoppage, she always wins or loses by decision. That inflated the odds artificially. The reason I bet on her, and this is important to know for the context, because you're going to do this when you analyse the same sort of bet, whether it's in football, MMA. What I saw was Luana Pinheiro, who she was fighting, gasses out severely after in round 2. She's only got one big round in her. I thought she'd come in a bit better conditioned, but she didn't. So she got one big round and she gasses. and she was so tired in her previous fight, she couldn't keep her hands up, and she was getting lit up, and she got wheel kicked. when someone is that vulnerable, anyone can finish them. Any good professional fighter, let alone Angela Hill, who is a veteran, who will come in with a good gas tank. This is a kind of like the perfect situation. Some people would say the perfect situation would be Angela Hill or the opponent in this case, being a fighter who finishes a lot of fights, but I disagree, because then you would have got bad odds. If Pinheiro was going up against a fighter who finishes all their fights, the odds would have been like much smaller, probably like 10 to 1, maybe even less than that. But because Angela Hill doesn't get many finishes, the odds were very high. So this is something I noticed and thought, yes, those odds are sky high. That only give that odds, the implied probability of the odds at 19.00 decimal odds is 18 to 1. So if they fight 18 times for that to be worth taking, she needs to get it more than one time. I believe that if they fought, she would get this, I would say, when I did my analysis, I thought she would get this a third of the time. I actually think it's higher, having seen how things played out, because Pinheiro just does not have a gas tank. I think anyone would finish her in the third round. But the second round we took as well, because she starts gassing in round 2. So from round 2 onwards, she's liable to finish. So my analysis said the chances of that happening, it's probably around 30 to 25%, but odds have got it at 5%, 20 to 1, roughly around there. So you take that bet every single time, and that's how you have to frame it. If it's a football player to score, you've got to ask yourself, if it's like them score and it's the same odds, how many goals have they scored this season? Because you can figure out they've played 100 games, they've scored 20 goals. In that case, it's the same odds, as what I analyse Angela Hill's chance to be, roughly 20% of the time. So you take it. So this is what you have to do. You've got to put it into a percentage so then you can compare the odds. What that will also do, that will also give you an idea of the number of times you have to make this bet before it cashes. The books think they've got the line accurate, and to be honest, in MMA, they just kind of put their finger up in the air a lot of times, so you can snipe good lines. They do this in football as well, with players to score who don't normally score. So you can also find players who take a lot of shots on goal, or get a lot of shots on target, or take a lot of shots, and bet them to score as a big outsider bet like this. And when you've got your percentage, so I capped it, let's be conservative, I capped it, Angela Hill gets it done, let's say 20% of the time. So I think that bet's going to cash 1 in 5 times. Those odds are amazing. You should put money on that. I wouldn't say, I was about to say big money. You probably should when there's that big of a disparity, but what I would do is put money on it, but I wouldn't expect it to hit. I would say that's going to hit 1 in 5 times. So I would look for 5 more of those bets. It doesn't necessarily have to be the exact same thing, something just similar in terms of odds. And then if they're not hitting, then I know my system's wrong. But it also gives you an indication of the value of the bet. You need to quantify it, because most people just say, that seems like a lot of money, it seems like it's too much for the likeliness. You need to put it into implied probability that you cap it, and then work out how many times they would have to play the match, have the fight, for it to hit. And that's what you want to do. And when you keep doing that, and look, I know it's boring, most of you don't want to sit there going through a load of different odds, working out the probability, but that's how you know if you've got a good deal or not, in terms of the odds. And you can also work out when you're going to have to wait. So that's how you do it. In MMA, you'll find situations like this all the time. The ideal scenario is having 2 fighters contributing to an outcome. In this case, we only had 1, and that's why the odds were high. So you don't always want the situation to be perfect, because the odds will be low, the bookies will see it coming. This was the perfect scenario. A fighter who doesn't finish very often, so maybe that's a player that doesn't score very often in football. But they're playing against a team that lets a lot of shots on goal. This player does take shots, maybe they don't get them on target, so they've got a good outsider chance of scoring. And you take those knowing that if your calculation is correct, you only have to play up 5 of those plays. And then you track them and you make sure. And then if you've tracked it over time, you'll find out how accurate you are at these. And then you can actually work out how often they're going to hit, and you can work out your return. So this is the thing that most of these long shot cappers don't tell you. You're going to have to lose sometimes a lot of times before hitting. And a lot of cappers out there, what they will do when they do high odds plays, high odds parlays and accas, they will put a load of actors at 5-1 and they will put 5 of them out. So one of them has to hit mathematically. And then they post that everywhere. You think, wow, this person's really, really good. And guys, it's just maths. One of them mathematically was supposed to hit. It's not profitable. So you've got to be very careful. You've got to make sure that the play is profitable. The way you make sure it's profitable is working out the event's probability percentage, how probable it is to happen, and the odds, and the implied probability of the odds, sorry. Those 2 things. You do that equation and it's as simple as that and you will make profit. That's the same as any betting, by the way. But with these odds, these high odds, there can be even more madness and even more wiggle room. But you've got to know how often you're going to hit that. So correlate it to if they play every 10 times, and then you know. Because a lot of people get annoyed when long shots don't hit, not realising that they're long shots. My Monster Parlay, for example, average odds are probably around 12-1 or something. We hit them like once every 4 weeks or so. So that means they're massively plus EV. Start thinking like this, guys. Start analysing the lines, the percentage, the implied probability, and your betting game will completely transform. You will start hitting a lot of these. You will start hitting a lot of your regular plays. But for these props, working out when they've priced it wrong, in particular, is everything. Because they're hoping that you're going to try a chance on something that's never got a chance of hitting, and they're hoping they're going to give you bad odds for it. You know, maybe it'll be like Mbappe to score, and the odds will be really rubbish. He's going to score most of the time anyway. So they're not going to give you good odds. So what you've got to do is find things that make an event more likely, look for people who not a lot of sports bettors will be betting on, and then go for it. This has been a very short, simple video, but it is that simple, guys. It's that simple. In MMA, do your tape study, do your analysis. When you find where someone is weak, maybe if it's the end of the fight, they're fighting someone else who keeps their cardio towards the end, but maybe they're not a knockout artist, that's the time to bet the props, because any fighter can get a finish. So start doing it, guys. Let me know how you get on. If you don't know how to do it, join this free Telegram below. In our group on the weekend, we hit this, I said in the group, round 2-3 finish at 19-1. I also did a revenge parlay because I had a 40-1 parlay, which would almost have hit, but one fighter got DQ'd, Rodriguez. I'm not going to get into that, but I think it was a bit of a weird situation. And another fighter to cut, who I believe got robbed. It was probably a bit more close. So what I did was I said, this is ridiculous, we've just got robbed for that DQ because we also had a straight play on it. So I said, we're going to make a revenge parlay to get our money back from the books. That's what we did. We hit it. It was at, I think, 8.65 odds, 8.7 odds, something like that. It was the last few fighters who I really believed in. I had them as straight plays, all combined together. We hit that. So we're hitting high odds plays in the UFC every week. I'm also hitting it in football as well. I had some high odds, they were, I guess, like bet builders that I often play in the free group as well. I always have odds in the free group with underdogs and draws. I find underdogs, either public underdogs that the public are backing because the public can't normally play underdogs. So those are the long shots that I like to play, or the draw line. So follow the free group, start cashing on long shots, and you can learn how to do it. If you don't want to learn how to do it, just follow my plays. Backsmith Bets. See you soon.